Today is November 18th, 2024, and welcome to the 415th episode of the So Video Games Podcast. Here on the show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I'm the one-man host of this show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores from 0 to 10, while also offering full accessibility information on every single gosh darn review that we publish. Thank you, personally, specifically, for joining me today. Glad you're here. As per usual, going to kick things off with housekeeping, where I discuss tidbits, news items, industry happenings, and basically anything randomly game adjacent that has caught my eye in the last 7 days. It's going to be kind of a quick one today. Just one bit of housekeeping. Kind of an interesting news story that came across my desk. They were talking about, it was PC Gamer. So full credit to PC Gamer. This is not my story. They did an interview with Valve and specifically Gabe Newell to say, what happened with Half-Life 3. That's been kind of like a running joke in the industry for years that Half-Life 3 never got produced. And in fact, I think a lot of people kind of have forgotten that Valve even made games. I think we all just know them for Steam, and that's really where their bread and butter's at. But yeah, it's true. They have made games, and they've made some really good ones in the past. So basically, you can check out the article at PC Gamer. It was called something like, Gabe Newell talks about Half-Life 3 or something like that. But basically, to put a long story into a very small capsule, he just says we didn't have a good idea to innovate. And that was kind of it. He didn't feel like finishing the story itself was good enough reason. And they didn't have any more brilliant ideas. It seems like they were kind of stuck in that track where every single game has to somehow push mechanics forward or have some kind of wild innovation, which in some respects I can understand, but in other ways not, because you can't have these brilliant industry shaking ideas every single time you put out a game. Sometimes you just want to make a game, and I think there's enough people out there who really care about the characters in Half-Life that they wanted to see what happened. So I think it's kind of I don't know if it's surprising, because it's been a million years since anybody has really realistically thought that Half-Life 3 was coming, and honestly I don't think it's ever coming. But just kind of a dumb reason. It seems like that could have made $1 billion, and clearly money is not Gabe Newell's problem, but just to satisfy the fans, just to finish the story, just to put a cap on it and let people have, completion or closure on it. I don't know. It just seems like a bad idea that they couldn't think of anything revolutionary and brilliant. So therefore we're not going to do anything. Way to set that bar high for yourselves, guys. I don't know. Anyway, interesting story. It wasn't a super long read, so check it out over at PC Gamer if you want to see that. And that was really the only thing that really came across my desk this week that I thought was worth mentioning. So that's going to be it for housekeeping. But before we crack into the main portion of the show, just a heads up, there is a So Video Games Patreon if you want to support the cost of running the show. Even $1 helps. One single solitary dollar does help, confirmed. If you want to pitch in, you can do that over at patreon.com/the So Video Games Podcast. Also, there is a So Video Games Discord channel where you can jump in and continue the conversation. Every listener is welcome to join free of charge. If you want to join in, just shoot me an email. I will send you the details, and the contact info for that will be coming up at the end of the show. All right, as listeners know, I do like to start the main portion of each episode with circlebacks, where I circle back to things that I've covered in depth on previous episodes. Not going to get into all the details again right now, but just think of this as a quick update to let you know if my thoughts have changed on a game for better or worse after spending more time with it. Got a couple circlebacks today. First, the never-ending saga of Kunitsu-Gami. Still playing that, and I am exactly 2 levels away from rolling credits. This has been a great game. This is the online-only Capcom kind of niche, hyper-culturally Japanese active tower defense where you play a guardian spirit protecting a goddess incarnate who is purifying a corrupted mountain. She starts at the peak, works her way down. Each level is basically kind of like a tower defense, but an active tower defense where you are the warrior who can run around and shore up defenses when things are getting a little weak. I wasn't so hot on the demo, but I played the full version on Game Pass, and I ended up really liking it a lot. I think the new intro really served it well. I've been putting some time into it. This is my my regular game. I don't know if I've talked about this before. I'm sure that I probably have, but basically, I cover a lot of stuff for the podcast here, and obviously I do not have the time. Like, no human has the time to finish every single game that is featured on this podcast. I mean, there's just no way I could do it. So I generally don't finish most of the games I play for the pod. I just kind of dip in a little bit, play an hour or two, get a sense of it, talk about it on the show. And then if I really like it, that's when I circle back to something, which means I play it, consistently over a couple of weeks. Now, right now in my life, I really only have bandwidth for like one steady game that's going to take me a while to chew through. And then I do a bunch of like little games, dip in, dip out for the pod and stuff. And Kunitsu-Gami has been my steady for like, it feels like forever. I feel like I've been chipping away at this one for a long time. Granted, it's been busy. I've had some projects. I haven't had my usual amount of free time, but still, I'm happy to be getting near the end of this one. Not that I don't like it anymore. I think it's great. If you like active tower defense, I think this is a really wonderful one. Experimental. There are some rough edges. There's a few things that need some polish, but like overall, great idea, great execution, having a lot of fun with it. But I'm good on it now. Like I want to wrap it up. I want to see the end of the game. I want to move on to something else. I want to be able to say that I put my time in and put my effort in. So I'm happy to be soon done, but I got to say these last couple levels have been quite difficult. I've had to grind a few times to get some more currency. I've had to retry levels like multiple times to try different ways of defending my levels, changing up my troops. You have armies in this game, different character types. And so I'm kind of changing my character types around. Sometimes I want more people with guns. Sometimes I want more people with pole arms. Sometimes I want to go more defense. Sometimes more active. So I've really been kind of mixing it up. And oh man, these last couple levels are just killing me, bro. They're really tough. But I'm only 2 levels away. I can see the finish line. It's within spitting distance. And I don't want to quit. But it's just like, oh man, like, I was kind of hoping I could just roll on through to the end and just move on to something else. But we'll get there. We'll get there. But still, overall, big thumbs up. Really enjoying it. Also, another circle back on Shogun Showdown. This is the 2D roguelike, hyper crunchy, movement specific game where you manage a samurai or other similar martial arts warrior type person. And you are in very small arenas fighting enemies from both the left and the right side. This is 2D, remember? And so you have to manage which way you're facing, turning back and forth, equipping a weapon, using a weapon. All those things take a turn. And so you have to really think in advance and study each battlefield well. You're not usually fighting more than 2 or 3 guys at once, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but it really matters. Every single turn matters in this game. I've been slowly chipping away, slowly unlocking something. Every 1 or 2 runs, I'll unlock something new. And I really respect it and I really admire it. It's slow, it's methodical. You really got to put your brain into it. You can't play this game half asleep or you get torn up by the enemies, but I just respect the fuck out of it. I think it's a really good roguelike. It's different enough from other roguelikes that I'm really enjoying just kind of putting my time into it. And I want to finish this game at least once. I don't think I've even gotten close. I think I've gotten maybe 3/4 of the way there and I just keep getting torn up. So I was actually talking to Eugene Sachs, one of the critics over at GameCritics.com. He writes reviews, but also mostly does videos. And so he had recently covered this game and I know he finished this game a couple times. So I was asking him for some tips. And he kind of, gave me some advice on certain techniques. I think he and I were both mostly of the same mind, but he used a couple weapons that I hadn't been avoiding, and he used a couple powers I hadn't really given a lot of time to. And for him, they really made the difference. So I'm going to take his advice and keep trucking on. But I think Shogun Showdown is a really excellent roguelike. It's pretty different. It is roguelike in the general strokes, like there's a map, different encounters, randomness, persistent unlocks over time, that whole stuff. But the actual combat engine is pretty different than most roguelikes these days, so I think it's really worth a shot. If you like the Asian theme, samurai, swords, and that kind of thing, if you like a very small scale, kind of an XCOM sort of experience, I think it's definitely worth looking into, and I'm really enjoying it. Haven't finished it yet, but I'm going to keep chipping away, and we'll finally get there someday, I hope. All right, I'm going to do something slightly different today. Usually this is where I jump into like my full-sized coverage of games that I've played for the show this week. But I had a couple of games where I had planned to really kind of dive into them and give them the usual treatment. But honestly, and just to be really straightforward with you folks, they just weren't that great and I didn't want to put that much time into them. So I'm doing kind of a quick hit thing today where I just give you a quick look at something and we'll kind of just bounce after that. I do have an obligation to mention it on the show, to cover it somehow, because I do get codes for free. And since we're on the topic, full disclosure, in accordance with FCC regulations, every game on this show today, with the exception of a demo and the one on Game Pass, I have gotten a code from the publisher for. So just full disclosure about that. And so because I do receive these codes, I do have an obligation to cover them somehow. And that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it today, but it's going to be kind of an abbreviated, truncated, short version for a couple of these. So just heads up on that. Okay, first game was Fear the Spotlight. This comes to us from Blumhouse, the famous and very successful horror studio. Have made a bunch of movies recently, many that I've really enjoyed. I am a fan of Blumhouse, although I've heard they started to do some AI stuff, which I'm not happy about. So we'll see what happens. But because it was Blumhouse, I wanted to check this out. It's called Fear the Spotlight. It's their first game, Blumhouse Games. Brand new house. Obviously, they're going to focus on horror stuff. This is a story about two girls in a high school who dabble with a Ouija board and some occult stuff, and then things go sideways. It is done in a kind of like faux retro PlayStation 1 style, which seems to be all the rage with the kids these days. Having grown up and lived through that period, I'm not very eager to revisit it, because I can remember when the PlayStation was brand new. I went to a consumer show and I did a hands-on test before it was even available to the public. And I remembered thinking it was so great, and it was really great, and I have no regrets, and I'm not shit-talking it. But now that we've moved on past that, I don't really want to go back to these days. I think things are much better now. Graphics are better, controls are better, UI is better, quality of life is better. So cool. If that's your jam, go for it. But I'm not really like all about the PS1 style. But that's kind of what it is, sort of. It's not really. I think they've done it in a modern engine and kind of put a couple filters on it and stuff to make it look kind of PS1 eyes, which is, I mean, whatever. Neither here nor there. I didn't stick with it for very long, though. I found it kind of like just not to my taste. I think it's well produced, but it's kind of slow. There's a lot of like find the item for the puzzle gameplay. There's a lot of wandering around, and the environments aren't huge, but they were like big enough to where I got lost a couple times, and there's no map. And like, that's like one of my number one pet peeves in a game, is like not having a map. And people think that their levels are a lot better than they are. Very few developers can get away without a map. FromSoft is like maybe one. I'm not sure who else, but they're like the only people who, in my mind, can honestly say their levels are good enough to not need a map. Most people cannot say that. So I got frustrated because I got lost a couple times, and that just like sucked all the wind out of my sails. And it just was like, okay, I mean, it's just kind of like a vaguely Silent Hill-ish sort of a thing. It just didn't really capture my attention, so I didn't stick with it for very long. Just a quick hit there. I will say one strange thing is that one of the girls that you are friends with in the beginning, her character model is so bow-legged when she's walking. I found it incredibly distracting, and not like I'm not even sure what the good way would be, but it was just incredibly distracting. And I'm like, dude, why did nobody fix this model? It looks awful. Like, it just looked really bad. Like, she would have like hip dysplasia or something. She'd get like early onset arthritis because her hips are just like so jacked, and like she's walking funny, and it was just really weird. It didn't look normal. And if they couldn't fix that, then I'm like, what are you doing modeling? You shouldn't be modeling. So modeling the 3D model is what I'm trying to say. So Fear the Spotlight. I mean, I guess if you want like a horror-ish Silent Hill thing that's a little bit slower paced, go for it. Not my jam, but just heads up that it exists, basically. Next quick hit here is called VED, V-E-D. This looked amazing in trailers, and I feel a little bit taken by the trailer, because this is a RPG that uses a lot of hand-drawn and somehow manipulated art. They do some kind of tool to make it animate like ever so slightly, but it's a lot of like hand-drawn art in 2D planes, and it's a pretty cool visual presentation. Like, just from style alone, visual style, I think it works. I liked it. It was kind of attractive. It looked different, that's for sure. But the rest of it was just, it was just really, really rough. Very poor. Like, the story was basically incomprehensible. You just start off like in media res, and they don't give you any information about who you are, or all these nouns that they start dropping, and all these things happening, and you don't know who likes who or who's against what, and you don't know what's going on, and the world is not the normal world. And so I just felt like lost from the get-go, which is never a great way to start your game. UI is not great. They don't explain the systems very well, and so at one point they're like talking about dodging left and dodging right, and I'm like, what are we talking about? I don't understand what this combat engine even is, because it's not like the usual combat engine. It's something different. So it was just like one of those games where it feels to me like the developer knows in their own head very much what they want to do, but they are not great at getting those ideas out of their head and communicating them in a clear way to others. So it was almost like one of those experiences where they kind of expect you to like read their mind about, I don't have to explain who this person is. You should just know who this person is. I don't have to explain this combat mechanic. You should just know. And it's like, I don't know, bro. I really don't. I'm serious. So I bounced on it pretty hard because I just did not understand what was going on. And I just felt very lost and confused. And not because I wasn't paying attention, just because the developer did not take any time to explain the game very well and did not explain their systems, did not explain the story. You just like jump into it. And I mean, real talk, like, I just don't give a shit. Like, you need to make me care about your characters and your engine and your story and your world. You need to make me care. That is a skill that writers have, that game creators have, that world developers have. You need to like draw the player in. You can't just like puke a bunch of stuff on the screen and expect people to give a shit about it. Because I don't. And so I just struggled with it for a while. I was like, okay, this visually looks great, but there's like no pull to play this. I do not feel curious enough to want to dig into whatever half-ass lore you came up with. Like, it just, presentation was rough, graphics, I mean, were nice, but just everything about it just felt very undercooked and kind of amateurish, and it just needed a lot more production and a lot more polish and massaging to get it ready for prime time. So I bounced on Ved pretty quickly. Looked great in the trailer, but it was kind of a miserable experience, so stopped on that one before too long. That was Ved. The other quick hit was Fear of the Spotlight, and I think that's it for now. Let me get into the somewhat beefier takes on the other games this week. All right, first of the, I don't know, I guess larger looks at games is for Athenian Rhapsody. This is the demo. Kind of a funny story. We got a code for this like a million billion years ago, but it happened right before Carlos Rodella left the show. Former co-host Carlos Rodella, good guy. Love Carlos. Carlos, if you're listening, what's up, my friend? But he got the code right before we were going to cover it, and then he left the show, and so I needed to cover the game, but I didn't have the code because Carlos took it, and like, you know, once you cash in a code, you can't like give it back, which is a shame. I wish you could. So I ended up just not playing it for a while. But I do not like to get a code and not cover it. I feel like that's kind of dishonest or disingenuous. So it took me a while, but I did finally see that there was a demo for Athenian Rhapsody, so here it is. Basically, it looks a lot like Undertale, a little bit of like Earthbound, but mostly Undertale. So much like Undertale that as I was playing this, I was like, is this related to Undertale? Did I not hear about this? It feels very, very similar to what Undertale does. And full disclosure, I don't care for Undertale. It's not something that I enjoyed. It's not a jam for me. I played it and I'm like, this is not my thing. And I moved on and I just forgot about it. I know a lot of people love Undertale. So if you like Undertale, you might want to check this out. Basically, you're just this kid and I don't even know what the story's about, but I do know that they told 2 fart jokes right off the bat when you start the game. And that is a no-no for me. I think fart jokes are like the lowest form of humor, really crude and dumb, and I just don't laugh at them. I don't think they're funny. And whenever I see a fart joke, I immediately think that this writer struggles with comedy. It just seems like just the worst possible choice to me, in my personal taste anyway. And to have 2 of those jokes almost back to back as soon as the game starts, we got off on the wrong foot for sure. The graphics are cute. It looks a lot like Undertale, but like in color. Looks a little bit like a 16-bit sort of an RPG, 2D kind of a thing. You, I don't know, you do some stuff, whatever. I lost interest almost right away and it didn't really catch me. But the battles that you do are very much like Undertale, where someone will like try to attack you. Your character is inside a box and you have to dodge their attacks. So that's very Undertale-like. You can also try to befriend people and they will feel like they ask you questions, and if you pick the right answer, then they like you a little bit more. And so I'm assuming, much like Undertale, you can do a pacifist run where you don't kill anyone, which is more difficult than it is just killing people. Or is it really? I don't know. Is that really the question? But regardless, the battles took way too long. After a couple battles, I was like, I don't want to do battles anymore. This is not interesting and not fun. And the writing itself was really twee. It was just really arch and kind of winky in a way that I found unpleasant. So everything about this game just really rubbed me the wrong way. Started poorly and it just kind of kept on being poor. So this is not a jam for me. I didn't like Undertale. I do not like Athenian Rhapsody. But if you like that one, I have to imagine that you would find something appealing here. So I guess recommended to people who really dig Undertale, but this is basically like Brad Repellent. everything about it just struck me as like, I don't want to be here. And so I left. So that is Athenian Rhapsody, the demo. The demo's available, I think, everywhere. Played it on the Switch, I believe. I think it's also on PC, probably on the consoles. Who knows? But there you go. Athenian Rhapsody, not my jam. All right, next up is a game called Liberte, which proves that I have the absolute worst French accent in the Western Hemisphere. It's written in the French style with an accent over the last E. I figured I'd give it a shot. I've now embarrassed myself. I'm sorry. You can direct all the accent hate mail my way. Sorry. I will not try that again. This one came to me out of the blue. I hadn't even heard of it, but the developer / publisher sent me the code. They were just like, here you go. And I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks. Playing it on Xbox. It's actually kind of cool. I like the concepts here, but it's one of those cases of where the production just isn't able to hold up and support the ideas. Basically, you are in the French Revolution period. I want to say, I don't know, I'm going to make an ass of myself. I don't know what year it is, but whatever. Just imagine like revolutionary France. But what happens is some kind of like weird Cthulhu entity lands in the middle of revolutionary France as all this shit is going on and starts like throwing chaos into the mix. It's pretty fucking interesting as a concept because we don't normally associate revolutionary France with the supernatural, but I think it's actually a pretty cool coming together of ideas. You play a revolutionary guy, French guy. You do not get to choose your character, or there's no character creation, anything like that. It plays from a top-down perspective, very much like Diablo. And you meet the entity pretty much right off the bat. It's like this giant, really large, woman-ish alien who seems to be maybe partially plant and partially animal. And they're definitely not human, that's for sure. And they show up and they kind of speak to you in your mind. And they're like, hey, help me out with these things, and I will reward you. And the guy's on board like pretty quick, but then he's like, well, are you the good person or the bad person? Whose side are you on? And she basically is just like, I'm on my own side. So whatever. You don't question it too much. But at that point, you kind of get loose in the world, and it's an interesting mix of ideas. So number one, I love the concept, like these weird beings, these possibly eldritch horrors showing up at this time in history that we don't often think of in that way. So that's a cool thing. But the combat is a little bit rough, and I think the other systems are also, I mean, everything about this game is rough. So I feel like the developer has some great ideas here, but they just weren't able to quite deliver. It needs a lot more polish. Feels like it hit the market too soon. For example, as you're going through the Diablo-style combat, you will see the same enemies over and over and over and over. They badly need better enemy variety, so that's a thing. You'll also be in these little sections of levels where there's not really anything happening, and you're kind of just like walking through the town. And so it seems like they're kind of going for this like verisimilitude and reality, and you're in these areas, but also there's nothing to do there. There's nothing happening there. So I thought their use of space was kind of strange. The combat is just like okay so far. Like it's like you get 2 special moves and a couple of skills and a basic attack. And it all works like just fine, but they do this roguelike element thing where it's kind of like a deck builder. You kill some guys and then you pick up these cards, and the cards can be attacks. They can be like attributes, like better defense or whatever. They can be items to use to heal yourself. It's all this giant jumble of stuff. And after a level is over, you lose it all. And so you have to like start over again from the next level. I'm not super mad at it, but it feels really random. I was going through a couple of sections of where I just didn't have any supplementary weapon for like a long time. I kept getting these like stat increases that didn't really help me very much. And also the life system is really unpredictable. I got a bunch of life when I didn't need it, and then I used it when I needed it, and then I went a really long stretch without getting any. And I felt like, okay, this needs to be evened out. And I don't even know if you really want to add the life system to random drops from enemies. I mean, you might want to just have an Estus flask or something like that, or have a more reliable way of purchasing healing from shops or something like that, and then just leave the weapons there, because I think there's value to it, like having randomized attacks keeps the gameplay feeling fresh. Sometimes you've got a gun, sometimes you got a sword, sometimes you've got an area attack. Changing it up, you only have the attacks for one level. I mean, that's okay. That's kind of cool. I kind of dig it, but I think they just like need to like focus a few aspects of it. It just doesn't quite work as well, and you can go for a long time without feeling like you're properly kitted out, which is kind of a bummer. I will say also that it's a little bit rough. I got stuck in the geometry a couple times. One time I was watching a cutscene and the guy's legs disappeared, and that was really weird. The worst part, though, is that the frame rate is just basically unplayable at the moment. It started out okay, and I'm not a frame rate whore. Like, I don't need like 120 FPS to even look at a game. I'm not like that at all. In fact, 30 is more than enough for me sometimes. But this is not even 30. It was so herky-jerky that it was literally making me ill. Like, I was watching it and I could feel my stomach start to go, and I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not puking for this game. No way, no how. So I thought maybe if I pushed on one or two more levels, maybe it would get better. It just kept getting worse and worse. So I wonder if it's like a cache problem, like they don't know how to program for the Xbox effectively, possibly. And I'm not like a developer or anything, but I have heard that being a problem before. So I'm wondering if that's the same problem. But I couldn't play it. It was too jerky. It was too awkward to watch, and my tummy started to feel sicky. So I had to bail. That was the biggest reason why I quit on it. But overall, it seems like a lot of pretty cool ideas that they just don't have the horsepower for. They need better everything, better combat, better graphics, better technical handling, better frame rate, better UI. Everything about it's got to be better, but the place where they're starting from is quite good. And I think that they've got a lot of potential. If they had more budget or more programmers to kind of like, artists as well to kind of take care of things, I think they'd be in really good shape. I think this would be a very interesting one, but it's just not ready for prime time right now. It's too rough. So I really want to give good words of encouragement to this developer and say, I think you're on the right track. Stick with it. But details matter. Like, performance matters, especially with all the competition out there. And you can't get away with releasing something that's so rough. Doing yourself a real disservice there. So that is Liberte with the accent on the E and my terrible French pronunciation. And like I said, good idea, but not quite fully baked there. All right, last game of the main portion here is called Redacted. This is basically like a Hades-like. I don't know that we got a lot of these so far since Hades, even though Hades is kind of the new benchmark for this genre. I guess somebody was telling me that it was based in the Callisto Protocol universe, which is kind of the spiritual successor to Dead Space. I don't know if that's true or not, and it doesn't really factor in. I mean, I never played Callisto Protocol, and as I'm playing Redacted, I don't really feel like, oh, I wish I had known what happened in this game. It's just, I don't know, just a little factoid that somebody wanted to share with me. Anyway, it's basically like a sci-fi Hades set in space prison. You play a guard in this, like, I don't know, space lockdown facility, and this virus happens and it turns everybody there into mutants, and you need to get off of the facility by trying to get to an escape pod. So you drop everything and you just start running for an escape pod. That's like basically what a run of this game equates to, is you start off in, I don't know, one location, security center or something like that, and then you are booking it through room by room by room, trying to get to the escape pod. Now, full disclosure, I have not completed a run of this game. I've gotten maybe halfway, but it can be quite challenging at times. But basically, top-down perspective, kind of isometric. You're the guard. You go to these room by rooms. I mean, structurally, it's very, very similar to Hades. You go into a room, number of enemies, kill the enemies, and you choose a room based on what is in the next room. So just like Hades, it'll tell you before you go in, this room's going to give you money. This room's going to give you a new weapon. This room's going to give you an electric upgrade. This room's going to give you like a gravity upgrade. Anything like that. So, I mean, effectively, it's basically like the same sort of a game. I will say that Hades is something that I enjoyed, and like I said, it's the high watermark, so it's hard to top that one. Just so much has gone into it. I don't think Redacted quite reaches that same threshold in terms of breadth of content and how those weapons interact with each other the way they do in Hades. But still, we're onto something pretty good here for sure. I think the controls are really tight, and as Hades proved, this formula works. It makes a lot of sense. The combat, I think, is nice because you have guns and melee, and you have a kick. So you've got like a lot of options, and it's pretty fun just to run around. It just feels good to play at a very basic level. So I think it succeeds there, which I think is good. Graphics are pretty good. It's kind of like this very bright, colorful, cartoony, cel-shaded thing. And there's a few places where it diverges from the Hades formula. I think one of the things that's most interesting, although to be fair, it's one of the things I have interacted with the least, is that there's a system of rivals. So what happens is you get the message in the story that, things are going south. You need to make it to the escape pod. after the first couple of runs, the game kind of unfolds a little bit, and then they reveal that there are other people on the station who want to make it to the same pod. So it's not just on you. It's like you're there running. There's also like the cafeteria worker lady who's like, I'm getting out of here. And she's like super vicious. There's one of the escaped prisoners who is like some kind of a gang leader guy. And there are a couple more I haven't met yet. So like, but these people are running towards the same escape pod. And so you see them at the bottom of your screen and their progress. Like you're starting off, you see them, they're almost always ahead of you. And you have to kind of catch up with them. And every once in a while, when you get to the door selection after clearing a room, you'll see the face of your rival. And if you go in there, they're like bosses that you can fight. Most of the time, they're really tough. And I got overpowered pretty quickly. But I did get the better of one time. And instead of killing them, it just kind of like slowed them down. And they ran off before I could finish them off. It felt scripted, you know, like they were like you couldn't kill them at that point in the game. So that's kind of interesting. I like the idea that you're competing against these other AI players to kind of get to the one vital resource that everybody needs. I don't know exactly how it plays out though, because you can rarely catch up to them. It's not very often. And most of the time they're way ahead of me. And I guess I'm not sure how you get faster, because you must clear the rooms before you can leave. You can't just flat out run, and clearing the rooms takes time. And even when I feel like I'm doing pretty well in terms of speed, they're still pretty far ahead of me. So I'm not sure what to do about that. There is a mechanic where you can access a quote unquote security system every couple of rooms. It's like a little power meter that you have. And every couple of rooms you clear, it'll say, you can now attack your opponent. And you use the station's security systems to either slow them down or hit them with some damage or otherwise interfere with their run. But the effect to me seems pretty minimal. So I guess I'm not really sure if I'm supposed to be catching up to them or what's happening. So, but it's an interesting idea though. It's really cool. You can also select various guns and, various weapons as you can. Nowhere near the amount of stuff as in Hades, but it's still pretty cool. Although a lot of the upgrades that you get, it says, oh, upgrade unlocked after your first completion. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, you're obviously thinking that I will be able to complete a run and then come back and keep playing and upgrade this thing. But I haven't really gotten that close yet. I've played a lot and I'm enjoying playing it. I think it's pretty good. And every time I lose a run, I feel like I want to go back in and try again, which is a great sign. But I don't know the wisdom of locking those upgrades behind completing a run, because I might just need those upgrades in order to complete a run the first time. I don't know where they've set the skill ceiling at here, but I'm definitely nowhere near it, obviously. But overall, I think it's a great game. I like the concept. I like the execution. The unlocks do feel to be coming a little bit slow, and that's aside from the upgrades that have to come after you finish a run. I feel like I need a little bit more help. There's a few other things to unlock, like you unlock different suits, which give you some powers, but it's not the same granularity that Hades offered, where it's like, oh, you can increase your life or revive from death or anything like that. It's just like, oh, you'll take less damage in this one certain zone, or maybe you'll run 15% faster. I mean, they're all beneficial, but you can only choose one at a time, and I feel like I need more upgrades to get me to where I'm going. Is that a skill issue? I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. I definitely don't feel like I'm dominating this game, and I feel like I'm pretty good at games in general. I mean, not like the pros or anything, but I feel like I can hold my own. So I suspect that over time I may feel like there's not enough upgrades and unlocks to support people like me who need just a little bit of a boost to get across the finish line. But we'll see. I haven't really gotten that far. Like I said, I only got about maybe halfway. And I don't know, TBD on that. But so far, I like it in terms of graphics. I like the concept. It feels great to play. The kineticism of it is just really lovely. So I think if you are in the mood for something like Hades, it's not Hades, and nothing except for Hades 2 is going to beat Hades. But I think this is a worthy one to look at, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm going to stick with it for a while. I'm going to do my best to get my security officer across the finish line. We'll see what happens. But we're not quite there yet, but I'm having a good time still. So that's definitely a thumbs up. That is Redacted, playing it on PlayStation. All right, folks, that is the game portion of the show officially done. But like many humans, I do spend a few minutes a week in front of screens that don't have menus or life bars. That's right. It's time for the TV and movie roundup. I will start off by saying I was watching an episode of the old 80s G.I. Joe series. That's one of the many 80s cartoon series I'm trying to make my way through. And season 1, episode 49 is called The Wrong Stuff. This one really kind of hit close to home, and my wife and I, she was watching it with me. We just kind of like paused and looked at each other for a second and went like, "What the fuck?" Basically, the plot is that Cobra Commander takes over broadcast satellites, and there's no hypnosis, there's no subliminal messages, there's no mind-altering drugs. He simply takes over the satellites, and what he does is he runs his own Cobra-themed programs. Again, no mind control here whatsoever. He is simply producing Cobra-themed TV, and he successfully takes over America. And we kind of paused and looked at each other and we're like, fucking A, that is the Fox playbook in a nutshell. And they must have got it from Cobra Commander on G.I. Joe, because it fucking worked. All he had to do was run a couple TV shows, and then people started agreeing with him, and he said whatever he wanted to say, and people went along with it. And we were just like, holy shit, that's exactly what's happening in our own society right here and right now. We are living an 80s supervillain cartoon plotline, and goddamn if it didn't work. It was kind of jarring to think that the always over the top and squawky and ineffectual Cobra Commander did come up with a plan that would basically take over America IRL. So that was a little bit jarring. That was the thing. We also watched on TV School Spirits, season 1, watched it on Netflix. This is about a girl who gets murdered in her high school, but we don't know who did it. She comes back as a ghost, and she needs to find out who has killed her, so she tries to solve her own mystery. She meets other ghosts who have been murdered on the high school property, which kind of struck us as weird, and we're like, damn, there's a lot of kids dying at this fucking high school. What's going on? But it probably would have been a pretty boring show if she had no one to talk to, right? So they had to figure out a way to get her to talk to some people. The kind of hook to the show is that ghosts cannot interact with the living, and that's the way it's always been, except this girl can make herself visible to one very specific person, and this person can see and hear her, and they talk, and we don't know why that is. We don't know what's happening, but she is the first person in the history of ghosts who can ever talk to somebody in the living world, and so they work together to try to solve the mystery. It's more than that. It's not just a simple whodunit. It's about an examination of these people and their lives and the people she knows and her family and how she got here. It's just really well done. The cast is excellent. I think the writing is really excellent too. Apparently it's based off a graphic novel. We watched all of season 1. I believe it was 10 episodes. Season 2 is coming soon, but it was great. I just definitely liked it a lot. Definitely a strong recommendation there. Moving on to actual films. A friend of the show, Mike Susky, also a fellow Game Critics writer, had recommended No One Will Save You, and the wife and I watched that a couple days ago. It's about a woman who lives alone. She's got some social anxiety, lives in this house all by herself, and aliens come down to Earth and they start fucking things up, and then she has to survive the alien invasion on her own. It's an interesting film because there's almost no dialogue in the entire thing. She's by herself and she doesn't talk to people, so she doesn't really have any reason to talk to anybody at all. So for long stretches of the film, it's just silent or just, screaming or whatever, but there's no talking. So that was an interesting take. Pretty good movie overall. I will say that I do not think I care for the ending. It was a little bit too artsy and ambiguous for my taste, but I'm glad I watched it, and I think it was a good movie overall, and I think the lead character turned in a pretty good performance. I was pretty impressed by that. Next movie we saw was Boy Kills World with one of the what's his name? That's right, Bill Skarsgård is the lead actor, who's absolutely fucking ripped, dude. He must have worked out for 6 months straight and ate nothing but fucking chicken breast to get into shape like that. It's ridiculous. It's kind of a way over the top, don't take this too seriously, hyper violent action movie where he is in some kind of dystopian society. His parents have been killed, and so he trains to come back and get revenge on the people who killed his parents and sister, I think, or something like that. It's goofy, it's funny, it's almost like a horror comedy, but a violence comedy. I don't know, is that a genre? I don't know if that's a genre, but the kills are way over the top. I mean, everything is just goofy. I mean, as an example, there's one of the most cringe-inducing scenes for me, not cringe because it was bad, but cringe because holy shit, that looked painful, was he goes into this kitchen and he's fighting some people in the kitchen, and he grabs this giant cheese grater and he starts hitting people with the cheese grater, and it was oh dude, I needed to close my eyes a little bit for that scene because it just looked so painful. But that was a wild one, had kind of a crazy ending, and it was just a good romp. If you want to see a bunch of bad guys get shot up and crazy, gun fu and acrobatics and just way, 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 way over the top. I mean, it was pretty good. Let's see. Next up, crossed one of the long time movies I've been wanting to see and never got around to. Jennifer's Body. I've heard about this one forever, for like literally decades, and people have recommended it to me, and I've just never gotten around to watching it. But the wife and I finally checked it off the list, and it had, was it Megan Fox and somebody else in it. I got to say, this is one of those ones which I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but you know how sometimes people tell you about a movie or a book or something, and you hear about it so long, and you think you know what it's about, and it's just like you hear the references, and you hear the quotes and the memes and everything, and then you feel like you've got a pretty good beat on it, and then when you actually sit down and watch it, it's like wildly different than you thought it was going to be. I guess that's my experience with many of these things so far, and I guess I should stop being surprised that my imagination did not correctly inform me of what the thing actually was. But this one was incredibly different than I thought it was going to be. But it was good. Definitely like kind of a, I don't know, late 90s, early 2000s jam or something. Some of the dialogue didn't quite hold up because some of the insults they were using in the film are no longer socially acceptable. So we cringed a little bit, but they were like pretty brief moments. They didn't linger on them very long. But basically, this girl is going to a concert. The guys at the concert end up being evil, and they sacrifice her because they want to get famous, and they think Satan's going to grant them fame and fortune. But things go wrong, and her body gets inhabited by a demon. And so the rest of the movie is about her being possessed and her friend dealing with this fact. And it's pretty sharp social satire, written by Diablo Cody, I believe. And it almost reminded me a little bit of like Heathers or something like that, something of that, where they're really like commenting on society and high school people and, weirdness and dating and being a woman and stuff. So it was good. It was pretty good. Again, not like I thought it was going to be, but it was pretty good. I'm glad I finally checked it off the list. Another long time omission from my horror repertoire was Jeepers Creepers. I've heard about that one a million times, and we finally watched that yesterday. Pretty good. It was, again, I feel like a broken record, but it was way different than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be much scarier than it was, although, full disclosure, I think maybe my horror tolerance has been creeping up lately, and also because I think real world is way more scary than anything I've ever seen in a horror movie, and we're living that every single day. But that was a pretty good one. I thought it was well done. It stars Justin Long, who I'm a big fan of. My wife and I are both big fans. And these two kids are driving cross country. They see some sketch stuff going down. They go to investigate, and it turns out that there is a serial killer of sorts running around. I'm not going to spoil too much, but it goes deeper than that, and there's more to it than that. But yeah, good film. Would recommend. I'll probably watch number 2. Liked it. Different than I thought, but still pretty good. The other horror movie we watched was the remake of Fright Night. This is the one that had the Irish guy, Colin Farrell. That's who it was. Remake of the 80s classic, which is one of my favorite movies. This is a story about a kid who feels like his neighbor is a vampire, and he tries to figure out whether his neighbor is a vampire or not, and so they kind of have some shenanigans there. Of course, it is a vampire. Wouldn't be much movie if it wasn't, and then things happen. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it was pretty good. I feel like it's supposed to be a quote-unquote remake of the classic Fright Night, but it's wildly different. They have some of the same elements in it. Some of the characters are still there. Some of the events that happen are still there. The same basic arc of like trying to discover whether he's a vampire and stuff is still there. So it's largely like the same film on all the major points, but it was really, really different. I mean, things accelerate and escalate in the film way faster this time than they do before. There's way less suspense. It's way bloodier, way more actiony than the first movie was. Different vibe, and it was really interesting too. Funny anyway, that the person who played the vampire in the original, Chris Sarandon, who did a fantastic job, really like one of the creepiest vampires, I think. He came back as a guest in the new film. It was like a civilian who got killed, but it was funny to see him show up just for a minute and be like, oh my gosh, it's Chris Sarandon, so great to see him. So that was really fun. Overall, pretty good, pretty standard, pretty straightforward. I mean, I may be a little bit biased, but I think I prefer the original. Just it had more charm, and I don't know, maybe just because I saw it when I was younger, but it will always have a special place in my heart, right next to where the steak goes, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it was good. It's not bad at all. final movie of the week was Argylle, Argylle. This is not a horror movie. This is a fantasy, I don't know, espionage, whatever. Stars Bryce Dallas Howard and, oh gosh, what the heck is his name? Sam Rockwell. She is a author who is writing spy novels. And in this movie, it turns out that she gets kidnapped by an actual spy organization because the stuff that she is writing, it turns out to be basically almost true. And so they think that she somehow has some information and they want her to give them the information, but she's just like a fiction writer. And so she gets abducted, and then this other friendly spy who is Sam Rockwell shows up and he tries to save her. And they kind of go on these like, James Bond-esque shenanigans where she's trying to keep up with the spy and she's like, I'm just a writer, and he's like, oh, I'm going to save you, and that whole kind of thing. It was pretty good. Even though I saw the reviews for the movie, the reviews are pretty bad. But I think people were being a little harsh on it. It's one of those movies where you have to kind of just go with it, because obviously it's not based in reality, and a lot of this stuff you just kind of have to be like, yeah, I bet they would survive that fall, or yeah, I bet he would make that turn. And just don't worry about it too much. I mean, it's obviously like a fantasy spy movie. I thought that Bryce Dallas Howard did a great job. I really liked her performance, and Sam Rockwell did a great job as well. Although I will say, to be perfectly honest, he is like 15 years older than her, and I just didn't frankly buy like the love interest angle that they were playing. He just kind of looked too old. I mean, he looks great for his age. I mean, he looks like he's in hella good shape. And I mean, he's older than me and he looks way better than I do. So like, no shade on Rockwell for that, but I just didn't see there was like chemistry between the two of them. And so when the movie kind of pivoted towards that, I was like, I don't know if I'm really going for this, but she did a great job. He did a great job. Lots of laughs. It was goofy. It was super goofy. I don't think you're supposed to take it seriously. It's like, again, kind of like Boy Kills World. It was just like so over the top and so nutso that you gotta it's just like a popcorn ride that you're going on, and if you want to be distracted for a couple hours. The other bad thing about it was too long. I think it came in at like 2 hours and 20 minutes, which frankly speaking was way too long. I don't really condone movies even being 2 hours these days. I mean, it's like, okay, so what's okay for it to be over 2 hours? I mean, like Infinity Gauntlet, okay, yeah, that's cool, I'll go for that. Lord of the Rings, okay, sure. Maybe a Star Wars, perhaps, maybe. But like everything else, you can get it done in a tight 90, and that's really all I need these days. So it was definitely indulgent in a few places, could have been cut back, and it was too long. But overall, I mean, I thought it was a really fun ride, kind of equivalent to something like Melissa McCarthy and Spy, which was a fucking hella good movie. If you haven't seen Spy with Melissa McCarthy, that one is a real fucking hoot and a holler. I like that one a lot. This wasn't quite as good as that, but still pretty good. And props to Bryce Dallas Howard for not being a size 0. I read some of the stuff afterwards, and apparently, she's a little heavier these days than she was in the past. I mean, I think she looks great. And when she was being cast for this movie, she apparently told the director, she's like, this is my body now, and this is what I look like. So if you want someone skinnier, pick someone else. And they're like, no, we're going to take you as you are, which I think was absolutely the right choice. She looks like a normal, healthy woman. And I think we need to see more of that on screen so that people, specifically women, stop having these unrealistic expectations of being like a size 0 all the time. So props to her, and props to the director for putting her on screen. I think she looks fantastic, and it's a real positive thing to see that represented in movies. All right, folks, that is a show. Before the closing music, I would love for you to leave a review, share the show on social media, and most important of all, please recommend the show to your friends, because nothing beats good old word of mouth. Also, again, just a quick reminder, you can support the show over at patreon.com/the So Videogames podcast. If you enjoy the show and you want to help me keep doing what I'm doing, kicking in a buck would be super appreciated. You can also join our Discord. That is all free of charge. And as always, I would love to get your questions and comments. Hit me up in the Discord or email me directly, sovideogamespodcast@gmail.com, or hit me up on social media. You can find me on Twitter, although honestly not for very much longer, I don't think. Twitter is going south in a hurry. It's been going south since that raging piece of shit Elon Musk bought it. But I hung in, and I wanted to like preserve the community and the friends and the contacts I'd built up over the 14 or 15 years I've been on it. But things are just getting pretty shit over there. So I'm not going to delete my account necessarily, but I don't know that I will be checking it as often as I do. I probably will not be posting anything there. So I don't know if Twitter is going to be a good place to find me. Probably better to find me on Instagram or Blue Sky. In all those places, it's my name, BradGallaway, all A's. no O's. And that's going to do it for episode 415. Thank you so much again for joining me here on the So Videogames podcast, and I'll see you next week.